Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So I hope you are all doing extremely well. We just reached over 700 subscribers, which is awesome. So thank you all for that. Now the last video I just recorded was actually me playing some tunes out in the woods. That was fun, I really enjoyed that. I was going to do some meditation out in the woods, but every time I try to do meditation out there, I can't seem to get comfortable in the way that I used to. Now, I used to meditate in those woods all the time. Maybe I'm just getting older, I'm not sure what it is, but I would go out there, rain or shine. I'd go out there even if it was snowing back in the day. But nowadays, it's just like any disturbance, whether it's just really hot outside or whether there's lots of bugs back there, whether it's ants or mosquitoes crawling on me, I just can't handle that shit. Like I start getting all itchy and stuff. I can't deal with that when I'm trying to meditate. I need to be in a completely relaxed state so that I'm not being not being distracted by anything else. I can focus solely on what it is that I'm meditating on. So I think in this video, this is not the next video that I was going to make originally. There's another topic that I want to cover, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to do this video on the way back home, but beats singing even more. I sing in the car all the time, so here's a way to knock out yet another topic on the YouTube channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about King Solomon's Temple and what that represents, more on a mystical level, more on a realistic level, and then what it means for each of us as individuals. So as we all know, especially those of you who are well studied in Freemasonry, King Solomon's Temple is the main setting for Sorry, I'm trying to read these texts that are popping up. I was having a conversation with my friend. So King Solomon's Temple is the main setting for the Masonic degrees, particularly, the first 3 degrees, the Entered Apprentice, the Fellow Craft, and the Master Mason. But that is the setting for a lot of the other degrees as well. Most degrees, if they don't take place at King Solomon's Temple, they have something to do with King Solomon's Temple. Now let's start off with, what exactly is King Solomon's Temple? Because I'm amazed at how many people who read the Bible and they don't even really know a whole lot about King Solomon, who he really was as like a magician, or they don't even really know what King Solomon's Temple was all about. So King Solomon's Temple, was built to house the God of the Israelites, the God Yahweh, or Jehovah. Those two terms seem to be pretty interchangeable. I think they kind of represent the same thing, and if they're not the same being or the same deity, then it is different aspects of that deity. And we see a lot of the things that Yahweh commands of the people in the Bible, and I view this being this is not God. It might be a demiurge. It's like a lower being, which is much more powerful than humans. According to Universal Mastery, Yahweh is actually a collective consciousness. It's like a hive mind that comes from, it's an extraterrestrial hive mind. It comes from a different star system. And it came here to help, it helped with the formation of the consciousness on this planet, and it actually made a huge mistake. If you want to learn more about that, check out Universal Mastery's video on Jehovah. But I don't want to stray too far from what I'm going to be covering in this video. So this Jehovah, or this Yahweh, the Christian God, is known for commanding a lot of despicable acts, in the Old Testament. You know, he would say, go in and like kill all the children, blah, 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 blah. And he always had this bloodline of people, the priests. You know, you've got Moses, you've got David, you've got Solomon. All of these, this patriarchal line that he's connected to, and he uses them as a conduit. Aaron the priest, too, you see a lot of him in Masonic ritual. This being, you know, channeling itself through these different people to do certain things and to create different events. The building of King Solomon's temple being one of these. And King Solomon's temple was built to house this god, which makes literally almost no fucking sense. Like, that he's kept in this box called the Ark of the Covenant. And that's like in the inner chamber, or the Sanctum Sanctorum. It basically represents, if we look at the body as being the Temple of Solomon, the Sanctum Sanctorum, or the Holy of Holies, is like the innermost part of ourselves. It's the most sacred part. I think it has a lot to do with the innermost, you know, dimensions of the mind, and probably closely related to the subconscious mind, or the unconscious mind. Probably the heart as well, like in the heart chakra. I'm sure there's a lot of connection there. So that was the purpose of this King Solomon's temple, according to the Israelites. And it did house this god for a while, but then the temple was destroyed. It's all like really strange stuff, you know, it's really, really kind of weird. And the different furniture of the temple represents actually the different parts of not only the universe, like the different planets and star systems, but it also represents different aspects of the human body and the human mind, the human psyche. So it represents all of these different aspects. If you want to learn more about which parts represent which parts correlate to which parts of the universe and the human body, I would recommend, I think there's a good section on this in The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. And that book's free online. It's really easy to get a hold of that. I think there's a whole chapter dedicated to the furniture of King Solomon's temple. We're not going to get into the specifics of that in this video. But what I just covered was more like the religious part of King Solomon's temple. Now, there's a mythical temple, which is more, you know, the myth of Freemasonry. It's centered around this celestial, so-called celestial temple, often referred to as the house not made with hands. It wasn't made with physical bricks or anything, but it's a celestial temple. It's the temple on high, where the grand architect of the universe presides. And as we know, the grand architect of the universe is supposed to be above any archonic deity. And you know, I even watched a video the other day talking about the archangel Samael, or Samael, and that even he's the demiurge, or the archonic ruler. So there's so much varying information on this stuff, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint a lot of it from reading from books. That's why you need to start working on invocation with different spirits, whether they're angelic or demonic, because the best information is really going to come from direct experience. You can read all the fucking books you want. I'm kind of getting out of that zone in the occult world where I'm like not reading as much material. I'm really only referencing books if I want to like teach about something on this channel, or if I'm using it as a guide in writing my book. But I don't like read a whole bunch of occult books anymore. As far as Qlipothic information, I refer to Thomas Carlson's book a lot, Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic. That's just a great book in general. It has a lot of deep information. So getting back to this Solomon's temple, the reality of this temple, if we look at more of a historical context rather than a purely religious or biblical one, is that this temple was not all that grand. It was actually only like a third of the size or something like that of King Solomon's like private temple or house, where he actually housed his harem. And the building or the temple or the house or whatever you want to call it that was supposed to house this Yahweh or this God was only like a third of the size of where he had his harem. So what kind of guy was King Solomon really? Was he a grand like magician or wizard, or was he really just some kind of like phony? It's the whole thing with Jesus too. You get like different weird historical accounts that make no sense like with the biblical accounts. So that's why it gets so confusing when you read all this stuff from all these different books and they're not really lining up. So that's why it's good to work with the spirits and realize that all of these stories are part of your internal journey, or it's more about integrating the stories and applying them to your daily life, about how you want to live your life. In my opinion, it's more about internalizing these things, and then you can externalize them in your experience. But I keep getting off track. There's lots of points I want to make during this. So on the historical end of things, we see that it's just more of a house, a small building to house this god, and the priest would just kind of go in there like once a year. Like at least the high priest was only allowed in there like once a year or something like that. Not very often. Only he could enter too. Now, if you've read the book Liber 420, Cannabis Herbs, I think it's Liber 420, but it's Cannabis, Magical Herbs, and the Occult. That's what it is. It talks about how the priest would actually burn. He has a theory in that the priest would actually burn cannabis in the Sanctum Sanctorum, and he would have basically these visions, and that's how he would communicate with God or Yahweh. So super interesting stuff. Like, most people are not talking about this information, especially your churchgoers and stuff. They don't, if it doesn't fit in with their like super square, like not ever looking outside the box, never looking into things for themselves. That's why I can't stand going to church. Like, I really just don't get it. It's like willful ignorance, which I can't fucking stand. So you've got these two ideas, like this historical idea that it wasn't like even that big of a building. It was not magnificent. Now the Bible describes it as there were many craftsmen that took place in the building of this. I mean, an insane amount of craftsmen. Like thousands upon thousands. Lots of fellow crafts, like a lot of entered apprentices too, and then like not as many master masons because they were higher ranked. And then you had the overseers of the work, such as like Hiram Abiff. He was the main overseer of the work. And if you really want to take this metaphor into real life, you could do this. You could see how there's people who are more architects and they're more oversee the construction of all of our modern edifices. They're more people of the mind, I will say. And then you have people who are like physical laborers, that are actually doing the construction. And what's really interesting lore I have to add to this as well is King Solomon was said to summon the 72 goetic demons to help him construct the temple. He would bind the demons and basically make them conform themselves to his will and help him in the construction of the temple. One of them was like even this crazy worm creature that would be able to bite the stone, and that's how they like carved that crazy, how they built these magnificent edifices like the pyramids and stuff. In King Solomon's temple, he was using the demons to and this worm would cut through these stones and would eat it. Just weird, bizarre like stories. That's why you have to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. And but anyway, this is all giving you like hopefully a lot to think about. So I think the third and the most important view of this temple, of King Solomon's temple, is it represents your own body, your own temple, your own mind and body. These are very important things to keep in equilibrium, to always keep a balance. It represents the brain hemispheres. Those are equivalent of the pillars. Now my left side, it's on my left side from me looking out, this would be the white pillar from what I understand, and the right hemisphere is the feminine brain. Now I've heard other views, but I'm pretty sure the left brain or left hemisphere is the logical linear side, and the right brain, being Boaz or the pillar of severity, is the right brain. It's the feminine side, which is actually the more creative aspect, like artistic, musical. If that's wrong, correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So the pillars on the porch of King Solomon's temple are representative of your brain hemispheres, and then the space in between would be the Sanctum Sanctorum, where the pineal gland is, which helps you activate visions and even if you rub it and stuff like in just the right spot, you can even secrete like little amounts of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which will help you have mystical experiences. So I think this last view of the temple is the most important, seeing it as an internal thing. And then when you have your temple space, when you're performing ritual, it's nice to have like a little section somewhere in your home that's almost like just an empty room. You could have like a couple pieces of furniture, like maybe an altar in the middle. But this empty space, it allows you to have a room where not only do you have your internal temple, which is beautiful and complete and has all the right things going on, but then you also have that reflected in your external environment with your physical temple. And that is also emblematical of King Solomon's temple as well. Keeping a clean, condensed space so that the energy stays pure in there. And then you can, whatever workings you want to do, you know, it's just nice. It's good to have a space like that where you can really relax. Like I said earlier, I'm having more and more trouble meditating in the woods because I have uncomfortability out there nowadays. You know, there were just ants and stuff everywhere. To have a space that's clear and condensed and where there's no distractions, really you can travel anywhere that you want to in your temple space. It's your sacred space. It represents the microcosm and the macrocosm, as above, so below. Especially if you're doing the lesser ritual of the pentagram. We've talked about that a lot lately. In your space, or whatever ritual it is, it doesn't matter whether you work with demons or whatever, to have this space to work with where you can light a candle, you know, you can have just a couple simple pieces of furniture so your mind's not distracted by external things, to help you invoke the right mental state to do your spiritual workings. That's the most important and effective meaning of King Solomon's temple. And then, you know, if you're a Freemason, if you've ever been to lodge, when you open a lodge, there's just this feeling of peace and serenity that's really hard to find in the outside world. Like, the world is so chaotic and it's so all over the place. Everybody's just running to and fro and not really sitting with themselves and not really figuring out what they are, who they are, you know, what they are really here to do in this life, or really trying to connect with higher or lower vibrational energies to pull those in. They're totally ignorant of this stuff. And they think that this reality, just the one we're perceiving with the 5 human senses, is the real one. It's crazy how distracted everyone really is. So the King Solomon's temple is truly your own peace of mind. It's a sacred space where you can go to. It's your own inner temple that you can go to. And when you get into really deep spiritual trances, especially when you're working with the angels, I have been in an astral temple. My mind has traveled to an astral temple. I've seen it in dreams. I've seen it even in visions during waking hours. It's like a Masonic temple, kind of. I've seen it with the checkerboard floor, but it's more etheric. It's more astral. It's more beautiful. It's more beautiful to have the angels in the temple with you when you're in that realm. It's more beautiful than like anything you're really even going to experience in the physical realm. It really just blows anything away that's here, that you're going to experience in the mundane world. Now, it's important to remember to remain practical in all of these things and all of this spirituality. So how can we bring those effects of all of those things that I just talked about, all of these teachings, and how can we apply them to our everyday peace of mind? Sorry, this phone is just not wanting me to sit still. It keeps falling over. How can we apply all of these things to our everyday life, you know, in a practical way? How can we use this to manifest the life that we want, to have this peace and prosperity that's really not that hard to obtain? Like, everyone thinks they have to do all of these things to, like, be happy or fill the time. But, of course, it's fun to go out and do things, but we have everything we need within ourselves. The divine beauty is within. It is us, you know? And when people, like, seem to forget this, they're always paying, like, large sums of money that they worked real hard for to go and do external things, when in reality, if there were just more people who had all those things internally, they don't need that external stimulation all the time, then true happiness, people would find true happiness on this planet. They could overcome all the mental illnesses that are, really kind of taking over in this time right now that we're living in this world. So these are all things to take into consideration. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about King Solomon's temple and what it means on different levels. The celestial temple, the house not made with hands, that you can perceive and be in that temple. It's like this home that you've always been connected to it, but we're here having a physical experience. Probably, especially those of you who are watching this channel or who are involved in the occult or esoterica in any sense, you came to this planet. I feel like I came here really reluctantly in a lot of ways. Like, it's not easy for me here a lot of the time. Sometimes it's not too bad, but then other times it just seems really rough. And I would just like to go back to my celestial home. But it's always this balance, because if everything's just one and it's pure bliss and light, then it gets kind of boring, So it's good to have experience, but we could have like really awesome experiences here on Earth. But humans are so confused by so many things right now that it's really sad. So I think I ranted on long enough. Thank you everyone for watching this channel. As always, like I said before, we're over 700 subscribers now. I think once I reach 1,000 subscribers, I will probably start a Patreon, honestly, and start inviting you guys to join that. I think that sounds like a really good idea. And then I'll try to have some even maybe higher level information or personal experiences maybe I wouldn't necessarily share on YouTube, but they could give you even greater insights for your spiritual practices. Maybe some things that are even good mistakes to avoid that I went through, and in telling you about them, maybe you can avoid those mistakes yourself. And I kind of talk about that a little bit on this channel. I hope what I say, gets through, and that a lot of you are already on this level anyway, so you already know. But anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. Peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, like this video, and invite other like-minded people to subscribe as well. So until next time, everyone, love y'all.